Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is actually the bundle of rights. Oftentimes a lot of videos are made right now with real estate, which is how to lead generate, how to get the numbers, and how to do all this stuff. But if you really want to get the numbers that you want to be able to obtain over a year's time, you really have to speak the language of real estate. So I'm going to start making videos about once a week that will actually come back and go over the language that we use every day in order to be able to sell a piece of property. There's a lot that happens with a transfer of a property. I'm talking about all the things that encompass transferring the property, the paperwork, the deeds, the title commitment, everything that we can think about. There is so much that goes into a transfer of a property. I know most of the time the consumer, you guys are just going to see buyer, seller, a purchase contract, maybe a home inspection, and then hoping that you guys get to the end of that transfer. But all these little necessary steps, I'm going to start videotaping. So please check back to my YouTube channel often, as I'll be uploading and doing these documents for you guys. So today, actually, again, I'll talk about one of my favorite topics, which is a bundle of rights. I'm using the 1st through the 30th because on a residential transaction, it takes us about 30 days to close it. Sometimes in commercial transactions, it can take up to 60 or even 6 to 7 months, depending on it, especially if it's like a gas station. If you can think about to be able to transfer that type of property, all the EPA, environmental stuff that has to go along with it. But we're going to talk about a residential property. It's going to take about 30 days. If you're using cash, we can actually close it a lot quicker time frame. So on the bundle of rights, on the last day that we're actually bringing a buyer and a seller together, we're transferring something, and what we're transferring is the actual bundle of rights. So that's what a seller is actually bringing to the table. The buyer is going to be bringing in what we call consideration, and that consideration can be anything from a boat, an RV, another house. You can trade stuff. And so what allows us to actually be able to do this is these bundle of rights. And I'm going to talk about the things that can affect the rights. But the first thing to look at are the rights, and if you're taking like a pre-licensing real estate class, the first one that I'm going to have, and I have 5 pens over here, and the 5 pens all represent a portion of that property. And so the first one I'm starting out with is a red pen, and that's actually going to be the right of possession. You have the right to occupy the property. And this is a pretty powerful pen right here, because if you don't make your house payments, then they foreclose on you. So that right of possession gets taken away. So that one red pen is going to be taken away. The next one that we have is the right to control the property and the framework of the law. So if I'm living in a single family home, what right do I have in order to be able to run a business maybe out of my house? You may not be able to. So that's something that affects the actual rights. And that's what we're talking about, is one of these sticks. So if I'm living in a single family home, I might be living in a neighborhood where I can't actually run a business out of it. Where do we find those documents at? Those documents, and where we're going to find that, is in what we call actually the CC&Rs. So the covenants, conditions, and restrictions of a piece of property. And these CC&Rs are going to possibly limit what you can and can't do with that piece of property. Oftentimes we find consumers that aren't reading fully through the CC&Rs. So if I bought a single family home and I think, hey, I'm going to turn around and start up a little small business and run it out of my house, and I'm buying this house thinking I can do that prior to purchasing it, you get into the home, and then that stick, that blue pen right here, the right to control the property within the scope of the law. So that could be something that could actually restrict you. Another thing too that we talk about, and you'll hear most of the time, and I'm going to be doing a lot of more future videos, guys, so feel free to check back quite often, because I will be talking about these CC&Rs, the zoning, and stuff that can affect that right, and that's a big one. The third pen that I have over here, this is the right to enjoy a piece of property. And of course, I'm not talking about going out and being able to have a nice cold glass of lemonade and sitting behind on my patio and not being disturbed by barking dogs or people doing stuff in the backyard like playing sports or anything like that. So I'm not talking about that type of stuff. What we're talking about with the enjoyment is I'm going to be able to possess the property, and after this closing point right here, this is important moving forward, that nothing pops up on the property. And something that can actually pop up on the property is maybe when you bought the property, you were doing a home inspection. And so if there was something the seller had to fix, and the seller didn't pay for something that cost $1,500, that was actually something that you wanted as a buyer in order to be able to purchase a property and to be able to have it fixed and not have to do it on this side over here after closing. So what happens is we have what you call a lien pops up on a house on this side over here, and that's a document that would keep you from possibly transferring the rights again to the next following owner. And so this quiet enjoyment is the right to be able to enjoy the property undisturbed from stuff that the seller may have done to the property, and it comes up afterwards. So the next following one is the right of exclusion. That's right, we have private property, and you can actually keep people off your property because it is private property. The last one that we're going to talk about is the right of disposition. Now this one's important because this is the right to be able to sell, transfer, or to lease, or to do anything with this piece of property on this site. Again, you might be restricted. You might be buying that property to turn it into a business. Oftentimes we're talking about stuff like Airbnbs, short-term rentals, or even turning it into a rental property. That may not be able to be done based upon, again, these documents called these CC&Rs. So the last thing that we really want to talk about today is what we call a deed. A deed is going to be a document. This document is going to be a piece of paper that is actually going to be signed by the seller prior to closing. So we're going to have a deed, and it's just going to be labeled a deed, and we're going to call that person a grantor, and that's a seller, and we're going to have the grantee, which is going to be the buyer. So this deed over here, we have what you call exceptions. So this is the deed that actually transfers these bundle of rights to move forward. And so this document could have things pulled out of it. And are you completely buying everything in the property? Oftentimes when you're buying a new construction homes, you may not be buying what we call mineral rights, water rights. These are rights to the property. Again, these bundle of rights define so much that we want to make sure that everything is true and that you get what you're actually paying for at the end when you actually move into the house. So this deed, you'll see the word accept. And in that word accept down there, everything is including the property except those items. And again, we are talking about mineral rights and water rights. In this video section, you're actually going to a deed, which I have in front of me here, and that you're viewing at this point in time. Down at the very bottom of that you'll see that the mineral rights and the water rights are excluded from the property. So if someone was buying this property and you were selling it as a seller, and you turn around and thought that you were going to be able to transfer everything, sometimes even the seller is unaware of what they're actually transferring. So again, that's why you're going to want to use someone who actually has expertise and who is licensed to be able to sell real estate. We're trained professionals in order to be able to look at these items prior to transfer. And of course, we have to disclose anything that comes up in the process as well during these 30 days. In conclusion, again, we're looking at the actual bundle of rights today. And again, that's going to be our 5 main sticks to the property over here that I use to example the different color of pens and different type of pens to represent each one of those sticks that the seller brings to the table. Again, the transfer of the actual bundle of rights is going to happen with this deed. We have a grantor who is a seller. We have a grantee who is a buyer. The seller is bringing the actual bundle of rights, all the sticks to the table. And then the grantee is going to be bringing in consideration. And that consideration, again, can come in the form of financing. It can come in cash. It could come in, of course, a boat. It could come in an RV. It could actually come in 2 horses, 3 cows, and a goat. Of course, the goat is your lawnmower, so you want to make sure you get that included in the property. And thank you very much for watching again today. Guys, please subscribe and like my YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.